You know the saying that you can't judge a book by its cover? Well, you can't judge a rider by its bike. This is a crazy story to tell, and this Fuji has a lot of stories to enlighten us on massive accomplishments of any age. Classic at any time, this bike is going to tell us and give us a heartwarming story after this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy, and I got something special here. And the bike itself, it is pretty cool, but it is not the special part. It's the actual rider of this bike. You know, you may have noticed what kind of bike this is. This is a hybrid. Hybrid is in between, a road bike and a mountain bike, and it's a good compromise in between, but neither great at both. But the hybrids have been around for several decades now, and a lot of people have landed themselves on the hybrid because the drop bar is a little too aggressive, a little too squirrely of a tire, and the mountain bikes, are just too heavy to be on pavement. Well, this bad boy, the absolute Fuji, well, Fuji's been a company that's been around for a long time. We used to carry Fuji back in the Parker Bikes days, and they were our bargain line. I mean, it's the line that actually was pretty decently priced, maybe $100 or $200 cheaper than Trek or whoever else is the bigger wigs out there. But it had decent componentry, good solid bike. I ridden a Fuji cross bike for a while, pretty nice little bike. But this little guy. It's entry level, really. It's just one of those, entry level, mid-range hybrids, and nothing really too special about the bike. That it's aluminum with, I believe, it's an alloy fork-ish, maybe steel. It has your linear pull brakes. It's 7 speeds in the back, 3 up front, turning with a Serra. It's like the mid-range componentry, but you wouldn't imagine this bike doing, let's guess it, what did it do? It did a double bypass. A double bypass in Colorado is part of the triple bypass. You can do 2, which is basically going over a mountain pass on a bicycle. Yeah, that's the first amazing part. This bike actually did a double bypass. You usually see nice high-end road bikes with Ultegra and Dura-Ace and carbon fiber and all that good jazz. Nope, this little engine that could just kept on going, and it did it. And what's even more of a heartfelt story is the individual that rode on it. He's in his 70s. I mean, he's an older lad. And he is actually a really nice guy. And yeah, he did a slow go on it. And a buddy of his helped him through the double bike. But he did it a couple years back. And to be at that age, to do that kind of riding on this kind of bike, you don't have any damn excuse not to do anything, right? So, any case, this one's in for a tune-up. I'm going to be giving it some TLC. I believe it needs a new chain. Going to clean up the frame, give it a little bit of polishing, maybe put some ceramic coating on it, and do whatever I can to get this bike back in shape for its next adventure. I don't think he's going to be doing the double bypass again. I think those events are usually most people's, like, I did it and I'm done. And he may be there too, but he still wants to do some recreational riding. And hey, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the bike is sound, safe, and ready for whatever's up next for the next adventure. So let's dive into this and do a little talk about it. So we got yourselves a little 7-speed, and it's a linear pull brake. You got to pull these apart for the wheel to drop out. Linear pull brakes were kind of a game changer back in the day from the old Canties. In addition to, added another level of better braking, really. The first mountain bike I had a cantilever Dior's, which they were okay, but you hit any mud, you had no brakes. These actually worked really well, and they've been around for, I guess, 2.5 decades now. Oh, that makes me feel old. But back on this, it's a 7-speed cassette, interesting enough, not a freewheel. So the hub itself is a little more flanged out, a little bit more beefier. This hub doesn't match the front. You probably know what happened. Something happened to the rear wheel at some point. Either he done worn it out, probably what he did, and had to upgrade to this guy. The chain has had its own. He's not in a clipless. He did actually an old school toe strap version, and that's just even more mind-boggling, the feat that he did on this bike. But again, to knock out the wheel, you got to take the cassette down to the small cog to get the derailleur out of the way. So when you pull this down, it just drops like so. The cassette removes just like any other cassette. It's just a 7-speed, so that's what we'll do here. So we're going to give this guy a nice little drivetrain clean. And so got to take that. It was kind of a little soft. Not really on there very tight, so it's probably good that we're working on it. So we can get that. And with a 7-speed free hub body, here's the tricky bit, which they typically don't have 7 speeds anymore. So you'll notice they have 2 spacers to bump that cassette out to accommodate for the 8-speed. This is an 8-speed free hub body on this wheel, and so it's 8, 9, and 10 free hub for those. So the 7-speed, you can get them to work, but you have to bump it out like so. So yeah, we're going to be popping some new cables and housing on this guy. We're just going to do it and do it right. It has internal routing, but it's a little bit different kind of routing. It's housing goes through all the way, so we'll take care of that part. And try to figure out what to do with this front derailleur. We'll get to that in a second. But the rear, I'll measure this, save that for measurement, but that will replace this cable. Probably long overdue, as well as everything else that's on here. And here is our quick link. He's going to be getting a new chain, so I'm just going to be keeping this chain as a measuring tool to measure it. So I'm not going to do the cleaning on it. As you can see, this is a little bit bigger pulley derailleur. This is something that came up with pretty recently to kind of help aid the chain for shifting. Works pretty well. You've probably seen big ones. I'm not sure, the jury's still out on that, but this guy is good. But it definitely needs some good cleaning because you can look at it, it's pretty dirty. You can get tucked up in here and release this cable like so. And I will be taking out the pedals. This one kind of blown out a little, so I'm going to see if I have some toe strap pedals we can upgrade them to, something that's a little more of an alloy cage, a little better quality. And we're going to pop this crank so we can get closer to it. Here we have a squared tapered system, so we need to use a squared taper crank arm remover to move the crank itself. So we want to tighten down this lock bolt first so it's flush, and then we use that to extract the crankset off of the actual spindle of the bottom bracket, so you can get all this cleaningness in there. You can see how dirty, but the teeth look still okay. They still have a rounded and a flat tops to them, so I think we're okay for the crankset. So I do clean these in ultrasonic cleaner. Just need to release it, and it is one piece of housing all the way to the front, so I don't have to worry about that part of it. They do have little springs and bits, so you got to be careful of losing track of them. And when I do throw these in ultrasonic cleaner, I usually do one set at a time, so I keep the front with the front and the back on the back, so I don't get distracted by switching those out by accident. And the front derailleur, this particular front derailleur does bottom or top pull, so it's more of a universal turny front derailleur. But you know, with derailleurs, they only have one job, is to move the chain up and down, And if it does it efficiently, doesn't matter what level it is the front derailleur usually doesn't get used as much while riding. In addition to, it is pretty lightweight and small and compact, but we want to clean this bad boy up and get all those pivots all cleaned up. And it even has a kickstand. We'll leave that on there. Bottom bracket, yeah, it feels okay. So we're going to do a whole bunch of cleaning through here. And I'm going to take that off too. So the front, we just, same thing as the rear, open that bad boy up so we can get the wheel out. Do the quick release, slide that through. Actually, that's not too bad. I thought it would be a little more crunchy, and it's not crunchy at all. And with the front brakes, we'll set these aside, do the rears first. And the pads look like they're okay. Just need to sand them down a little bit, get them a little more fresh, and I'll be performing a little bit better for them. And he's got a little zip tie trick going on here, or rubber band trick, so we'll get that tucked away proper so it doesn't fling out and bother him, because obviously that was an issue, and we will take care of that. So I have my first little batch here, so I can get a little pre-treatment of just kind of breaking down the grease, and hopefully get that dust and dirt out of the way. Clean the cassette a little bit, spray that there, and double check the jockey pulleys. This is when you want to pre-scrape that gunk off the pulleys themselves. That gives the ultrasonic cleaner the best opportunity to clean them without fighting that buildup. You can see it just drips right off. Kinda. Scrapes right off, not drips, scraping. Now I'll enable the chain to shift a lot smoother, all that buildup gunk off. So when the parts are cooking, this is a great opportunity to clean the wheels and give it a good once wipe down of the frame, get all the kind of grease and grime off of this. I may put a ceramic coating on it once I get it all clean, just to add some extra layer of protection. But I definitely want to get through all this dirt and kind of determine if there's any issues with the frame, that kind of thing, like cracks and all that. Not saying that I'm expecting anything of that nature, but that's what I do, just to inspect as I'm cleaning. And pretty much that's all mechanics do when they get the frame down and start scrubbing all the dirt off. That's if they get the dirt off. I know some mechanics just do the technical functions of it. You know, they just do the shifting and the brakes, and that's about as far as they go. They really don't get too nitty-gritty with cleaning and polishing and that kind of deal. But I found polishing the bikes has enabled me to find a lot of boo-boo areas where you would not. And that also relates to the safety of the ride. So it behooves you to give a frame a good wipe down a couple times to catch all those angles. So if it's your process of cleaning the frame, that actually might help catch any issues that might come along with cracked frames or any of that nature. But we want to give this guy a little extra loving because it's had its journey, and we want to give it its bike spa moment. And let's just continue to keep this going. Well, here we have it. Clean brakes. Ooh, the crank plastic bits I took off to clean, and yeah, I figured I needed to do a little paint job on that crankset to give it a little better shine. And the derailleurs came out pretty clean. We can't paint those pretty much, but they just need to be lubed up and ready to go. There's the other brakes. And that cassette, 7-speed, super clean. I did a ceramic job on the rims and the hubs. Wheels are pretty good, really, considering what it's been through and what he's ridden. That's pretty amazing. And the frame, got a ceramic coating on there, nice and clean, ready to install the parts. So yeah, let's review. Yeah, a little bit, I wouldn't say basic. It's just one of those things that this isn't a high-end level tune, but I did clean up the frame, did a little bit of detailing on it, at least to get some of the gunk off of there for sure. Super clean, and put a ceramic coating, 2-stack on it, which gives it a little bit extra protection. Wipe down the parts with it, as well as the rims with ceramic coating and the spokes and the hubs, so it'll give it a little extra protection. We're going to be installing a new chain on this as well. Since it's a 7-speed, you'll be getting a 8-speed chain, which basically the 8-speed chain does 6, 7, 8. Just a little side note there for you for those who are not familiar with the chains. So yeah, the crank, I did paint it because the plastic was getting discolored. So I figured, well, I have like a black farmer equipment paint, which is kind of matches the Shimano, or I'm not sure that's a Shimano. It's some whatever brand the crankset that is, which most of those black and expensive cranks are. They're pinned together as chain rings, so that just tells you the level of it. But it does work well and it holds up. I figured a little bit extra sheen on there would be a little better protection. Also look a little bit nicer as well. After those dry, the wheels and brakes and crankset and chain and derailleurs will be all put back on. New derailleur cable for the rear. Probably replace that little piece of housing in the back to give it a little extra shifting power. The rest of the cables seem to be fine at this point, so I'll address those issues if it does come up when I'm doing the fine tuning. But other than that, this bike is a workhorse, obviously, and the rider itself, there's no hands, bars, donuts about it. That guy is pretty amazing, the ride that he's done on this bike, and it's great. So I am ecstatic to see his reaction when he sees this bike all cleaned up, polished, and fine-tuned for him to keep extending his adventure. And yeah, this Absolute needed some absolute tender TLC. So, well, the description has all the tune-up information, the parts and the tools that I use in this particular video, and other insights. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. And if it's nice in your neck of the wood, just go out there and go for a ride with that ponytail, virtual ponytail, flap in the wind and go. Until next time, from the garage.